I'm live. Yesterday I was reading out of a chapter entitled The Girl from the Grain Barge, and the battery was showing me the empty sign and I didn't see it. So I'm starting back from where I left off. This is the book, So Moses Was Born. It is written by Joan Grants. She was a seer and used to write books of her far memories. This is her book about ancient Egypt. She is in this life Nebunefer, who was originally going to be the heir to the royal throne and become pharaoh when Seti dies. But it is Ramoses who has become pharaoh for various reasons which are described in the previous chapters. Joan Grants lived from 1907 till 1989. She was married 4 times, very interesting woman. And we are here now at the chapter entitled The Girl from the Grain Barge. I read quite a bit of it yesterday, but unfortunately I hadn't realized that it was muted. So I continue where Ramoses had just talked to his mother. He felt ill at ease. He had been a fool, and somehow he must prevent anyone finding out how much he regretted this extra responsibility he had put upon himself. He had intended to send one of his servants to the girl with some appropriate gift, but now he would have to go himself, for no one must ever know that the Lady Irie came from a grain barge. It had been difficult enough to enter the palace as pharaoh. It would be harder to leave it without being seen. It was easier than he expected, for he went to the little palace and took Kia and her husband further into his confidence. Wearing the kilt, which Kia had carefully mended, he set off at dusk. There were lights on at the barge, and he waited until the owner and his nephew took the river walk towards the city. The girl came out of the living quarters in the stern and threw a bowl of fish heads into the water. He gave a low whistle. She turned and saw him. "Oh, it is you," she said. "Was your mother cross?" She tried to be until I said, "Pharaoh has spoken," and then she knew I was in no mood to be argued with. She giggled. "It's lucky your mother hasn't a proper respect for royalty, or she'd have given you a proper scolding. Even when my uncle is very drunk, he won't let anyone make fun of Pharaoh. He used to be a soldier before father left him the barge, and sometimes he still boasts about what he did in the army." "Would you ever break your word to Pharaoh?" he asked. "How could I? Not that I'd ever have the chance." "Why couldn't you?" "Come into the light. I want to look at you," she said. He jumped down from the quay and walked along the gangway between the grain jars. "You are not a foreigner," she said. "When you asked me why I wouldn't break my word to Pharaoh, I thought you couldn't be an Egyptian. I suppose your mother thought it so obvious that she didn't bother to tell you. Anyone who breaks his oath of allegiance stays in the underworld forever and ever, because the gods know he can't be trusted." "Do you ever think what you would do if the gods gave you a wish or several wishes?" "Of course, don't you?" "Sometimes I wish I was beautiful." "You are," said Ramoses. "So that wish wouldn't make any difference." She blushed. "Tell that to my brother and hear him laugh." "Then I wish my leg would heal." "That will soon happen. There are ointments which take the poison even from the wound made by leopard's claws." "And who would give it to me?" "A physician." She smiled. "Your family must be richer than I thought, or you would know that physicians don't want fish or grain for barter." "You don't wish widely enough. It is more fun if you think of very unlikely things. What you really want, really, not just what seems possible." She sat on a sack of millet and looked up at him, her eyes dark silver in the lamplight. "I should like always to have an enough to eat, without having to gut fish or grind millet for gruel. I should like to have clean clothes every day, and hot water to wash in. I would like a garden where I could grow flowers. I should like a dog to sleep in my room, and to have a room to myself, and a woman to be kind to me when I'm tired. Mother was always kind when she was ill. All these things belong to you, he said. Only when I'm asleep. But sometimes the day seems very long, especially when I have to stay awake until my uncle comes back from the wine shop. Once, when I didn't hear him, he fell off the quay and nearly drowned. He beat me because he thought it was my fault, but he was sorry afterwards. I am not exactly who you think I am, he said, hesitatingly. Was he going to tell her without making her frightened? She patted his leg. If you weren't rich, I knew you weren't rich, she said consolingly. My leg will heal without ointment, so please don't be sad about it. I can give you the ointment, and the house, and the garden, and the dog. I can give you everything. Why do you mock me? It is only a game we are playing. The game will be spoiled if you claim it will really happen. It's more than a game. Will you come with me, so that I can show you the house and the woman who will look after you? Your mother will not like you to bring home a stranger, she said, still afraid to believe she could be welcomed by a woman so fortunate as to own ducks and goats and a patch of vegetables. He took her hand and helped her up the river walk. You were right about the new pharaoh, she said. My uncle says the wine shops are buzzing with talk like bees when the bean fields flower, and everyone believes that. Ramoses is not going to be ruled by the old queen. What do you think Ramoses is like? He's very handsome and brave and clever. He's the son of Horus, so the hawks wait in the sky to watch him pass, and lions trot behind him as dogs follow other men. He looked up at the moon and laughed. But what do you think of me? But what do you think of me? You are the kindest boy I've ever met, and I'm sure you are very brave and clever too. He kissed her lightly on the forehead. You would never break your word to Pharaoh. Would you break your word to me? Or if you're sure you can keep it, I will tell you a secret. I will never break my word to you. You are my first real friend. I can make all your wishes come true, he said gently. You see, my name is Ramoses. Tua would have made an excellent captain of captains, for instead of stubbornly keeping to a prearranged plan of campaign, she was prepared instantly to modify her strategy when unforeseen factors appeared. So long as she could treat Ramoses as a child, she did not want him to marry. But now he was proving intractable. The sooner he had children, the better, for as a grandmother, she could hope for a new sphere of influence. She respected Nebunefer and hoped to find in her an intelligent pupil. Therefore, the girl must not be allowed to hear about Eri until after the royal marriage. She found this surprisingly easy to arrange, not realizing that her arguments would have carried little weight if Ramoses had not been too preoccupied to notice that Nefertari was still brooding over their quarrel. Tua's reasons would have been difficult to refute, even by someone more assured than her chosen daughter-in-law. If you are here during the lamentations, Ramoses will not be able to conceal his joy at your forthcoming marriage, and people may think him lacking in filial piety. There are so many officials he must see during the early days of his reign, and he will grudge the time spent with them if he could be with you, and even more subtle. Until now he has thought of you only as a companion with whom he sails on a boat or goes wild fowling. Give him a little while in which to realize how greatly he misses you, and then return as a woman. He will love you more than ever before. So Nefertari went north to the house of her father's sister, and tried to believe that choosing clothes to wear as the bride of Pharaoh was more important than being with him when he most needed her. After she had gone, Tua defended her to Ramoses until he began to think she needed defense. You cannot blame the poor child for being jealous of Eri. But you are wise, my son, not to permit her to become over-possessive. To her intimates, Chua hinted that her son was so virile that his royal wife would not be neglected even if he took a secondary wife or many concubines. So the mothers of daughters took heart and gave them new dresses and even necklaces and bracelets. Men, both in the houses of nobles and in the wine shops, boasted that their pharaoh was lusty as a young bull and would lead the armies of Egypt to fresh conquests. Almost the only person who for a time remained unaware of his growing reputation was Ramoses himself. He thought Nefertari had left Thebes only because she was sulking, and so became increasingly determined that he should accept Eri as one of the queen's women. Before Eri would be ready to face her future companions, she must be taught the etiquette and speech of the court, and who else could he trust to teach her? So every day he spent at least an hour with her, even though it meant curtailing an audience with some important official. No one was allowed to enter the little palace without his permission, and the food she ate, except fruit which he himself picked for her, was brought from the market by Kia's husband. Even the soldiers at her gates were selected from those who had been with him at the house of the captains and whose personal loyalty was well proven. With Eri, he never had to pretend to be older or braver or wiser than he felt at the moment. She was refreshing as spring water and undemanding as a pitcher. She had dreamt many dreams of what heaven would be like, so she did not question the bounty of the gods when they showed her that the same joy could flower on both banks of the great river. Ptamas, the young physician who had saved the life of Ramoses' friend and charioteer, came to live in the house until his skill and his ointment cleansed the open sore, and she no longer walked with a limb. When there was nothing more he could do for her, he expected to return to the southern garrison, where he looked after the women of the soldiers' village. But instead, Ramoses gave him the title of personal physician to Pharaoh. Eri did not miss her uncle or her brother, for they had never been linked except by blood. They were told that she had been taken into the household of the wife of a minor noble, and were more than willing to accept the value of a second trading barge instead of an extra mouth to feed. She was nearly as tall as Samson and able to wear the clothes that still filled many of the chests. At first, she found it difficult to walk gracefully in a long dress of pleated mist linen, and she wielded a fan as though the ostrich feathers were a fly whisk. Ramoses told one of Tua's women to provide him with every unguent used by the queen, and these he put into little alabaster jars, their lids inlaid with lapis lazuli, and took them to Eri in a gold and ivory toilet chest which had belonged to his father's first queen. They laughed together like the children they still were, when he showed her how to draw a line with a cold stick from the corner of her eyes towards the curve of her ears, and both discovered how difficult it is to get the eye line in exact balance with a lengthened eyebrow. He practiced until he discovered how to grind malachite for her eyelids, and then showed her how to put it on with the tip of a finger dipped in oil. Her voice was already sweet, but he made her repeat poetry after him so that any rough inflection was smoothed away. Though she was docile, he rejoiced that she was never subservient. She accepted everything he told her as though it were natural as dawn and sunset, and she had no fear of the future, for it did not occur to her that Nefertari could be anything but fond to one who so dearly loved her husband. "You will not mind when I marry?" he asked, a little disappointed that she was never jealous, for all the women he had known thought love could be limited, as though it were a bowl of figs from which if one is taken there are fewer for the others to share. "How could I, when you will be happier? It is sad for you that the princess has had to visit her kinsman, but soon she will return, and then you will never again be lonely." "You will be happy as one of the women?" "Of course," she said, "for unless you had known I would be happy, you would not have brought me here. Nefertari is a little jealous. You must not be hurt if at any time she is impatient." She laughed. Oh dear, and silly Ramoses. How could your wife be jealous of a girl who only a month ago knew nothing except how to make soup from fish and onions? You must never let her know you lived on a barge, he said quickly. Doesn't she know? Her eyes were troubled. Ramoses, surely she knows all about me. She doesn't, he reluctantly admitted. I tried to tell her, but she wouldn't listen. Then I'd better go back to my uncle. You said you would never be disloyal to the boy who was your first real friend. Must you also desert Pharaoh? You will very soon forget me. Kia said that I must always remember that I'm not important to you as a person, only as a kind of doll, that it pleases you to dress because you needed it, you mended it. Then Kia is a fool. Don't you realize how much it means to me to have someone with whom I never have to pretend? Except when I'm with you or asleep, I'm always Pharaoh. Hour after hour, day after day, I have to listen to people drone on about tallies or treaties or new roads or the plans of architects. And I have to give judgment on matters which I do not fully understand. Only by the eyes that watch me can I guess whether I have been just or unjust, too lenient or too harsh. Erie, you can't leave me just because you may find the other women difficult. He paced up and down the narrow garden while she watched him compassionately. Erie, because I was able to bring you here and give you things you never had before, you think Pharaoh can do anything. But he can't, Erie. Even my father wouldn't talk freely to his son until after he was dead. We all honored him, but none of us really loved him. Nefertari loves me, or I think she does, but already she sees me as Pharaoh. If I tell her I'm afraid, she will be ashamed, as though I squatted in the public highway. I will let her share my throne, and she will give me children in exchange, barter, honest, as any in the marketplace, but still barter. Then why marry her? Because at least she will not be able to forget that we were children together. She will be easier with her. It will be easier with her than with any other woman. Easier? To secure the succession, he said bluntly. Erie, I must be honest, even if you hate me for it. Mother thinks you are my concubine, and she will warn Nefertari about you, if she hasn't done so already. But the princess will believe you. Of course she will believe you. He avoided her dismayed eyes. I shall encourage their belief. Shall I tell you why? I warn you that it is not a pretty confession. You can tell me anything, and if you wish, it shall be instantly forgotten. He ceased his restless pacing and sat leaning back against her knee, so that his face was hidden from her. I've only once taken a woman. Do you know what that means? I know, she said gently. You cannot help seeing a lot of things if you are poor, and the house has only one room. We lived in a house before Uncle took to the river. The women might have mocked me until I pretended she was only one of many, and then she was more frightened than I. Afterwards, I never wanted to see her again. I want Nefertari to think I know all about it. I couldn't bear her to be sorry for me. I hate pity. How dare anyone pity Pharaoh? You pitied me, and I don't hate you, Moses. Don't you realize, he said slowly, that you are the only person whom I shall never try to hate? And Moses wept, but did not try to hide his tears. So this is the end of the chapter with the girl from the barge. Next chapter is entitled Fugitive, but I stop here. I think this is the 11th reading. Bye-bye.